if you could. Great. All right. So welcome everyone to the Pathways Health and Home Learning session for June 2021. I'm Heather Bates. I'm the COO of Transform Health, but I'm also a Pathways team member in that I work on the newsletter and the Learning Collaborative. And so what I'd like to, you're going to be hearing a little bit from me. Next slide, please. But I also want to make sure we have plenty of time for our speaker today, who is hailing from New York City. So she's already 3 hours ahead of us and has a weekend to start. And so we are grateful for the East Coast for operating on California time today. So I do want to mention that this call is being recorded. To protect the integrity of the recording, we would ask that everybody stay on mute. We will open up the lines at the end for questions, and we ask that everyone put your questions in the chat. We are going to record all of those questions and make sure we answer you if we don't get to you live during the webinar. But I also wanted to flag that I know that many of you have a lot of achievements that you have had in the Pathways program around reunification and reconnection, and that is the theme of today. So if you have a success story that you want to share, don't be shy and also mention it at the end of the call, and/or feel free to say in the chat, hey, we've done this now 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 20 times, and we've learned some best practices that we would like to share. Because I know that many of you work on family reunification and similar efforts in your pilot program. So without further ado, I think all of you know who Transform Health is, but I would like to introduce our speaker, Madeline Connolly. So next slide, please. Madeline is, essentially ground rules. Let's go through them. You're all on mute. As I've explained, please put your questions in the chat. We will answer them at the end, and we will also make sure that you get a recording of this. So if you miss any part of it or you have to hop off, don't worry, it's being recorded. And it will live on our YouTube channel as well. So you'll have access to this after the fact. And I know that our speaker has some videos as well that might be helpful for you to educate your peers. So we will make sure that you have access to all of that material, either in slide form or recording form. All right, next slide. So Madeline Connolly, who is she? Well, we connected with her a couple months back when we thought about doing family reunification and friend reunification, even just support system reunification when it comes to people experiencing homelessness or on the margins. Because we think it's really important when it comes to transition, when it comes to making sure that someone has a stable network to support them through all of these life changes, if they want to. So this is strictly a voluntary effort in every direction, but I'll let Madeline explain more about their program. The program is Miracle Messages. And Madeline Connolly is actually retired, but now works for Miracle Messages. She worked for many years at the New York State United Teachers Union. And so her background lends itself well to this, I think, in terms of mentorship, education, and making sure that outreach is effective and impactful. Her time volunteering with people experiencing homelessness and food insecurity has been invaluable to making sure Miracle Messages has a sound program. And I think you will really learn a lot from her and how they're implementing this project that is now, in fact, worldwide. And in addition to that, I'd like to say that she's going to share some really impactful, heartfelt stories. And I know that we don't have an official story bank with the Pathways Project, but if you have an impactful story that you'd like to share, we want to hear it. So with that, I will hand this over to Madeline. I'll be available to you. Feel free to chat each other or me or anyone in the group. But I hope you really appreciate this presentation, and I'll be back in a little bit. Madeline, the floor is yours.
Thanks so much, Heather. Um, so as Heather said, my name is Madeline Connolly. I am the Director of Operations for Miracle Messages, and I am really, really honored and thrilled to be able to share with you what we do. We're a small company. We started our nonprofit, we started about 6 years ago, so we're still really a startup. But our mission is really to try to break down social isolation and relational poverty, because we do believe relational poverty is poverty. And really what started us is this quote, when Kevin was out on the streets, he's our CEO and our founder. He went out, he had a uncle who suffered from schizophrenia. He was on and off the streets. He would come home for birthdays and Thanksgivings. And when his uncle passed away, he realized that our unhoused friends that are on the streets are somebody. So someone's somebody. So he actually got this quote, and it's kind of resonated with us. And it's kind of part of our mission. So I'm really glad to be here, and I'm glad to tell you a little bit about the programs that we have at Miracle Messages. So next slide, please. You can, I think I talked a little bit about that. So if you want to hop on to the next, I'll talk about our 3 different programs. All right, so we do have three programs within Miracle Messages, but our very first and our flagship program is our reunion service. And you know, when Kevin was out looking around, he decided that he was going to go up to people on the streets and say, "Is there anybody that you'd like to reconnect with? Is there anybody that you're missing?" And some people say no, but a lot of people say yes. And a lot of people will say, I haven't spoken to someone in 30 years, 40 years. It could be their mom, it could be their daughter. So he decided to start this reunion service. And really the way our reunion service works is we have volunteers, we have a hotline, we have a general manager that is actually based out of South Florida that will ask our unhoused neighbors that question. Is there anybody that you'd like to reconnect with? And if they answer yes, then we take the time, and sometimes it could take 45, 50 minutes to try to pull out of somebody who it is that they want to reconnect with, where they last saw that person, why did the disconnection happen. And so we take all of that information in. And to date, we reunited over 450 families. 15% of those have actually brought families back together, where they are now living together. The family has brought them back. An 80% positive outcome. And for us, a positive outcome is now there's a connection between someone and their family. They now feel seen, they feel loved, and they may not physically be in the same home, but they are now communicating with each other. So that in a nutshell is our reunion service. Do you want to pull up the impact? I think this particular map here kind of highlights a little bit. This is our number of reunions, and this is where where they originated from, where the case originated from. And Danielle, if you could click on the Miami. So this now shows you the magnitude of where we've actually reconnected people with. And as you can see, we will find people even in faraway places like a remote village in Kenya, which we were actually able to find family for somebody. So we have, yes, our headquarters is in San Francisco, but we get cases from all over the country. And we obviously will try to find family as best that we can, and loved ones all over the world. So thank you, Danielle, for showing that. So just a quick question, based on your experience, what's the average length of time an individual is separated from family? If you guys could take a minute and answer that poll for us.
And while folks are answering the poll, I know that everybody has some kind of experience or potentially with family reunification or support system reunification. So we'd love to hear the average length of time just based on your experience as well in the chat. So if you'd like to share that, please do.
Thank you, Heather. Okay. So based on our experiences and based on our the information that we receive, the average amount of time that someone's been disconnected is 15 years. So, you know, and again, this is our clients. These are the people that come to us, and that's our data. We've had people that have been disconnected for 60 years that we've been able to reconnect. Some could be a year. But our average is 15. So thank you for answering the poll. All right, next slide, please. This is one of our stories that I wanted to share with you. This just happened this year. And I'll try my hardest not to cry through it, because every time I talk about this story, it really does, it's just beautiful. So Linda was in Florida. Gabby, our general manager, had seen her on and off. She was unsheltered. She was living under a bridge. She had been homeless for about 25 years. She's an active substance abuser. She's been ill on and off. And when Gabby asked her the question, is there anyone that you'd like to reconnect with or anybody that you'd like to get a message to? She said her children. And she hadn't seen her children since they were little, like 3 and 5 years old. So about 30 years she hadn't seen them. And her message was, I'm thinking of you and I miss you and I love you. So the story unfolds from there. Gabby takes that information in, she puts it into our database. One of our digital detectives picks up that case. Within less than 24 hours, he located Linda's mom and Linda's son. Within 36 hours, Linda's daughter called the detective and said, we want to come get our mom. We want to see her. So they booked a flight from Wisconsin to Miami. They drove around for hours looking for Linda. She, of course, that night was not in the spot where she normally is, but Linda's son and daughter drove around with Gabby. They gave up at about 1 o'clock in the morning. They went to their hotel. They couldn't sleep. They went back out. They went back out and they found her. They called Gabby. They took her back to their hotel room. They introduced themselves. There was a lot of tears. There was a lot of disbelief. The children had never given up hope of finding their mom. She had left them because she wasn't a substance abuse user, and they never gave up hope. And so when they saw their mom, Gabby said they turned into a 3 and a 5-year-old. They were so excited. And they opened up their hearts to their mom. The next day, they called Gabby and said, we just rented a car. We're driving her back to Wisconsin. She's having a little bit of a hard time, but we can't get her on a plane because she has no IDs. So we're going to drive her back. They drove her back to Wisconsin. And again, the universe, her daughter is the director of a substance abuse facility, and she was able to get her mom into the facility. If you could fast forward to, or not fast forward, but you could advance to the next slide. This is Linda with her daughter, Linda with her mom, her son. And if you can read that quote, she's being loved immensely. What continues with this miracle is that she's not the only one that's been reconnected. So when Linda came back into the family, she reconnected with her sister, with her nieces and nephews. Her niece actually became one of our digital detective volunteers after this happened. So 25 years of being disconnected, she is now living back with the family. They've invited Gabby, who started this whole thing, to their first family reunion this coming July. So they really were impacted by this, obviously, and it's just a beautiful story. And it's just, you know, not all the stories end this way, but when they do, it just makes us just want to work harder. And just to clarify, our digital detectives are all volunteers. So the man that picked up this case is a volunteer. He happens to be a private investigator by trade, which is really pretty cool. But he was able to solve this case really, really quickly, and it was meant to be solved that quickly. So that's just one of our beautiful reunion stories that I thought that I would share with you. There's many more. We have some on our website if you're interested. There's been different news articles about us. There was one man by the name of Mick that was reunited with his mom after 65 years, and CBS actually did a story on it. And so, yeah, so there's just been a lot of stories like this. A couple of things I want to say about our reunion service is not everything ends the way Linda's does or the way Mick's does. You know, sometimes when we reach out to family, the family does not want to reconnect, and we have to respect and honor that. So it has to be a double opt-in. So if a family member does not want to reconnect, then we have to honor that. And so then we have to deliver the message to the person, you know, to our client, the unhoused neighbor, and we have to let them know, you know, that unfortunately the family is not ready to reconnect with them right now. And so that's a hard thing to say to them, but we now have another program called Miracle Friends that we can offer them. So I want to talk a little bit about the Miracle Friends program, because the reunion service we recognize is really great for people that want to reconnect with family, but sometimes family's the problem. And sometimes family doesn't want to reconnect. So having the Miracle Friends program is really going to be the next thing I want to talk about after we'll do the poll question next, but the Miracle Friends program is just a natural transition if the reunion service isn't an option. So let's do the poll question. What are a few of the main reasons people get disconnected? Check all that apply. Okay, let's see what the responses are. So all of these answers obviously could be a reason why someone has become disconnected. From our experience, emotional barriers is one of the main reasons, is because they don't think family would want them back. And the other is, honestly, a lot of times people will call our hotline and just say, I lost my phone and I've lost all the phone numbers to my family, and they like had no place to go. They didn't know how to get help with something like that. And it wasn't that, you know, necessarily the family was estranged. It's just that they didn't have their phone anymore. And that happens so much, as I'm sure many of you know, with our friends. So, but of course, a lot of these will lead to a disconnection, you know, dementia, confusion, medical, you know, illnesses. But the first two are really the ones that we see quite a bit. So thank you. All right, next slide. Oh, I was going to jump to Miracle Friends because I love that program so much. But first, let me just talk to you a little bit about, oh, go back up. Yeah, we'll talk about this for just a minute. In case you're curious how things come in, I mentioned this already, but we get things in through our hotline, 1-800-MISS-YOU. It rings all the time. There's an online referral form that we'll show you real quick in a minute. The research is done by the volunteer digital detectives. So we have calls every Wednesday night. Our case solving community, we have our detectives come on, they talk about their wins, they talk about some of the sadness, they talk about, you know, how to best try to search for somebody. Like right now we're looking for a gentleman who has 6 siblings that are all in Canada. And it's like, we know we can find at least one of them and that'll give us everybody. So we're working really, really hard to do that. We also get a lot of cases in from hospitals right now, where, you know, someone will come into the hospital, they are unhoused, they have no ID on them, they managed to at least get their name and their date of birth, and, you know, maybe their health is failing and they really need family, they want to be able to get to family. And so we'll get calls coming in like that as well. So we get calls coming into our hotline from the individual themselves, from our partner sites, from the hospitals. So there's many ways that things can come into our hotline. And then, so we talk about all of that on our Wednesday night calls. Hopefully we'll be able to deliver a message. Sometimes we will find people on Facebook. Sometimes we'll be able to, you know, when we locate a phone number, we'll be able to call, text. We've even been able to send snail mail and get responses. So we will try everything that we can in order to locate that person's loved one. We will go above and beyond to try to locate a loved one. So hopefully once we do that, we'll be able to deliver the message. We will try to be on the phone because, you know, a lot of this is done over the phone. So we'll try to be on the phone when the loved one and our unhoused talk to each other, which I was actually my very, very first case that I took, because I came in first as a volunteer to Miracle Messages. My very first case, I was able to reunite 2 brothers that had been disconnected for 7 years. And I was sobbing because to hear the 2 of them just talk to each other. One was in San Francisco, one was in Milwaukee, and just to hear them talk. And then for me to be able to say, okay, here's your phone numbers, now you can chat whenever you want, was just such a cool thing to be a part of, and just a beautiful experience. So our volunteer digital detectives get to do that, get to do that a lot, deliver. And then hopefully we'll be able to reunite. Danielle, would you mind pulling up the 1-800-MISS-YOU website real quick? I think it's the last tab you have open. Awesome. So on this website, along with the referral form, there is a form for volunteers. There's a form for partners if you want to be able to spread the word about this. And there's also a paper form for this same information. And as you look through this form, I mean, there's information that is required, and then there's information that, you know, we just really want to try to get as much of that as we can when we're dealing with the reunion service. So, you know, where was the last place somebody lived? When was the last time they saw that loved one? That kind of information. So we really, the more you can give us to do the search, the better. Now, we recognize sometimes it's not possible. You know, I took a call in off the hotline last week, and someone was in the hospital, and it was really hard for the person that was in the hospital to even identify themselves. So the police got involved, and they were able to get the individual's date of birth and their name. And so right now we're searching for somebody, anybody that is connected with this person, even if it's not family, just somebody who knows them. So we're looking at last known addresses and things like that. But the more information you can give us, obviously, that your client or the unhoused person that that you might see on the street, you know, the more that they can give us, the better. So thank you, Danielle, for showing that. All right. So let's talk about our Miracle Friends program. This is actually where I spend the majority of my time as the director of ops. This program started a little bit more than a year ago, and it started when COVID hit and San Francisco realized that they needed to do something about our homeless that were in these congregate shelters that were way too close together and couldn't stay apart. And many of them had underlying conditions that would make them really prime suspects to get COVID. So the city of San Francisco approached Kevin Adler. Kevin Adler is our CEO and our founder, and asked him what did he think about putting together a virtual buddy program, where as they're moving people into the shelter in place hotels, matching them with a volunteer friend for weekly phone calls and text messages. So from that came our Miracle Friends program. So our Miracle Friends program right now, we have about 130 matches. We have people that are in shelter in place hotels. We have people that are living in campers. We have several people that are actually unhoused. We have people all over San Francisco, mostly in the Bay Area, but we have some from Los Angeles, and we have a few that have come into our program from Florida. And we've actually had 2 people that called our hotline that heard about this program that are in Arizona, and they're matched right now with volunteers. So we have people from all over. I actually have one match right now. The volunteer is in Germany, and she's communicating with her friend in San Francisco. And they do a lot through texting because that's what the friend really likes. So it's a really beautiful connection. So our volunteers come into the program, they go through training, they get a handbook, they get assigned a mentor, and then the mentor actually communicates with the friend first to make sure that the friend understands what we are and what we're not, because we're not caseworkers. You know, that's not our role. Our role is to be here as a friend, to engage in phone calls, to really be a part of their life. And what we're finding is, first of all, we still have friends that have been matched since the beginning of the program that are going to be lifelong friends. So, and you know, who could anticipate that a year ago? That first of all, many of them are still living in hotels, but a lot of them have moved to transitional housing or permanent supportive housing, and they stay with their friend. You know, they've developed this relationship. And what we're finding is it's impactful not only for the friend, but for the volunteer. What we're seeing is our friends are empowered because they have this connection with somebody who calls and checks on them, make sure they're okay. You know, sometimes the friend will share if there's a problem or an issue. And if that comes up and it's something that maybe we can't handle, like we just had an individual that needs help trying to figure out how to get dentures. And so that's something that we can provide, you know, that information to them. So if we can help with something like, you know, where do I go to get dentures, or how do I get my stimulus check, or those types of questions, we're happy to help our friends with that. But if it's something of a, you know, a little bit more serious magnitude, like we have one of our friends whose medication is running out and she's afraid to go to the doctor. Well, that's something that we're going to send up to the care coordinator, the case manager, the site manager, whoever referred them into our program. We're gonna send that to them, because that's not something that we can help with, is how to get her more medication. So we get all different types of questions into the program. Our mentors are there to help our volunteers navigate. We're there to support our volunteers if sometimes the conversations are, you know, maybe sad or difficult. We're there to support our volunteers through all of that. And at the end of the day, we've got over 100 matches of people that are being called that don't feel so isolated. And we've provided them with the comfort of knowing that we're there for them and we're going to be a buddy to them. And I would love to have you guys spend a couple of minutes watching the next video with me. So Danielle, if you could go to the next slide.
Can you all hear that? I
Not
think we
really.
need to do a sound check on that and start it over. Also, while we're doing that, there's a question that I think we might want to address, Madeline,
Sure.
related to the database of it all and sort of intake. Christy posted, do you take reverse referrals? In other words, so family member or someone is looking for someone and then they've lost that connection. Can you talk us through that piece? And then is there sort of a database where this information goes when families are added to a list? How does all that work?
So if it's okay, I've got a slide to talk about our Find Them
Okay,
program, which is exactly that. It's the reverse. And so I can talk a little bit about the Find Them program if that's where the
great.
database, it sounds like that's where the database question's coming from.
Yeah, I think we should do that actually, and maybe come back to the video,
Okay.
unless we've got it working. But I defer to
Yeah.
the tech crew on the case.
Yeah. We can, yeah, let's go to the, we can just go through the rest of the presentation if, and then.
Yeah, that's fine. We can send the video out as well if we can't get it working.
That's so weird. It was just working.
It was.
No worries. Why don't we continue forward and then we will loop back on the video towards the end of the presentation.
All right, that sounds great. And the Find Them is going to be up in just a minute, so I'll talk about that. The one thing I did want to mention, kind of an offshoot of the Miracle Friends program, was a new program that we developed and created this year, which is our Miracle Money Direct Cash Transfer program. Kevin, again, our CEO and our founder, really wanted to do like a universal basic income program. And we decided to raise money. So we had money. Originally, we were only going to take 5 people into the pilot, but we were able to raise enough donations to provide 15 unhoused participants that are in the Miracle Friends program with $500 a month for 6 months. And the way they came into the program, became eligible for the program, is that their volunteer friend, had to refer them, had to submit an application. And then we reviewed those applications with a committee. And from that committee, we came up with, it was really hard to come up with 5 because that's what we thought we were going to get. But we ended up getting enough money to be able to do 15, which was still hard to do, but we were able to do that. This program is in a pilot. But what we've had so far is 25% of the participants have been able to use that $500 to secure housing, which is really, really amazing. We have others that are using, one gentleman used the money to help him get a dog that will allow him, it's not a service dog, but it's a dog that is able to detect when he might have a seizure. And so he was able to use the money to not only get the dog, but to also offset some of the costs with the dog. So I just wanted to spend a couple of minutes talking about our direct transfer program. And that picture there is Elizabeth. She's one of our participants in the Miracle Friends program and the Miracle Money program. And that's her looking out her window of her forever home that she just moved into a few weeks ago. So, and again, as a result of being part of the Miracle Friends and then the Miracle Money program, she was able to secure that housing. So thank you. Danielle, you want to hop to the next slide? All right, so this is the question that came up a couple minutes ago. So when we started the reunion service and we were looking for loved ones for our unhoused neighbors, the word got out. And 1-800-MISS-YOU became like the phone number for families to call because they were looking for their unhoused loved ones. And we also became the go-to for NamUs. They would refer families to us as well. We have, again, volunteer digital detectives that are part of this group, a separate set of detectives because this is a much different type of search, if you can imagine, than searching for family. So we do get calls from family where they're looking for their loved ones, and we get as much information in as we can. We have solved about 30 of these so far. They do still keep coming in, and we're doing the best that we can to get through them. But a lot of times, if we make connections with a police department, we can share photos with them, and they'll actually go out on the streets and look for us. We have, some of our volunteers, if they're in that geographic region, especially now that, it's a little bit safer for them to be out on the streets, they might go out and look for them. I have right now one of our ambassadors, Brian, looking for a young man in San Francisco. I sent him the picture, and within a couple of hours, he said, "I think I just saw him." So I was like, oh my gosh. So we're trying to see if we can track him down and make sure that he's the right person. So yeah, so family will refer to us. We take their information in. A detective will pick it up. We have like a list of resources that will provide the family as well, because sometimes families aren't even really sure how to file a missing persons report. So we try to help them through that process as well, and have the family as engaged as possible with us as we are doing some of the searching, having them help us. If there's things that we need them to fill out as the family, we'll definitely communicate back to them. We do have a web page off of our main page, and Danielle, if you want to pull that up, it's called, it's just the Find Them. So it's miraclemessages.org/find them. And on here, there is a list of all of the missing relatives. And if we have photos for people, they're going to be here as well. So these are people that we are currently searching for. We can actually break this down by geographic region. So, I've actually dealt with people in like Arizona and different places where I can extract these photos for that region and send it to people. And then they can just have it in their portfolio, that if somebody comes across their desk, there might be a recognition. So we can certainly share this information. If you're interested and you're working with this unhoused population, you might see somebody come across that we think is in the family believes was last in Sacramento, or a neighboring community. We can share that information with you. But if you have somebody and you want to just type in their name, you can hit the little magnifying glass, type in their name, and see if they happen to be in our database. So yeah, we just got an email into our general mailbox 2 days ago. A woman, a Good Samaritan, saw an unhoused woman on the streets, and I'm not really sure why, but I think she might have popped in her name, and it came to this missing relative database. And she emailed and said, "I know where she is," and she gave us all the information. And so now we're communicating with the family to say, she was just seen, a month ago at this location. So yeah, so I mean, it's just a really great tool if you see somebody and you're just curious if family's looking for them. Thank you. If you want to hop back to the PowerPoint.
And while we're doing that, Madeline, I had a question. How many volunteers does it take to do all of this? And how much time what's the time commitment for them?
So depending upon, so we'll talk first about the case solving community. So right now we have probably about 25 to 30 active volunteers that will pick up cases that come out of the, into our case solving community. So they probably spend about an hour or two a week. And we do want our volunteers, when they pick up a case, to be committed to that case and to really work on it. until they have either some kind of resolution or until they maybe need some guidance or some help. We have another private investigator by the name of Mark, who is amazing, and he has office hours. Our volunteers can go ask for help. So yeah, so we really want our volunteers, when they pick up a case, to be able to do that work for a couple hours a week. For the Find Them, we have a smaller pool of volunteers. We have about 7 that are really dedicated to doing this work. And I haven't asked them lately, but I'm going to say they probably are doing closer to 5 to 10 hours a week, if not more, because that work does take just a lot more time to try to locate someone who's unhoused. So, and then, for our Miracle Friends program, we have, about 130 volunteers, and they're probably spending about an hour a week, maybe a little bit longer if their friend likes to talk more often a week, or, some friends only want to talk for maybe 15, 20 minutes a week. So it really depends on your friend, because we meet our friends where they're at. And so that really is kind of fluctuates. So in our programs, we probably have, close to 150, 200 volunteers at any time.
Thank you. And are they all remote? And what is the training involved?
Yeah, so all of our volunteers are remote. They're all over the country, and some are international. And the training that's involved for the case solving community is there's really 2 parts to the training. So the first thing is, when people come in, we do want them to complete a waiver. We do want them to review a code of conduct. And then we have once a month, the 4th Thursday of the month, we offer a boot camp. And that boot camp is an hour and a half. It's myself and Mark. We take them through training. We take them through how to tackle a case, the anatomy of a case, the search engines that we use. So we probably spend about 45 minutes to an hour going through our training. And, a lot of times we'll pick up a case that currently needs to be worked on, and Mark will kind of show a little bit about how he'll approach it. And that's really, really, I learn from Mark every time he does that, because he's brilliant. So, so then during that boot camp, what we do is we say to the volunteers, let's now work on a case together. And so we'll start plugging away and working on a case together. Sometimes we get cases in, like the gentleman I mentioned in Canada, who has 6 siblings he wants to find. So we had a boot camp where everyone took a different sibling, and we all started searching for a sibling. So we spend that time in the boot camp. And then the hope is, once someone goes through the boot camp, that they do want to continue and be a volunteer with us and pick up a case of their own and work on that case. And, we recognize that people's lives get busy. So sometimes we'll have a volunteer come in, they'll work on a case or 2 until they're completed, and then they might need a break for a month, and then they'll come back. So if someone goes through the boot camp and gets that training, they can then start engaging with us and working on their own cases, having the support of the case solving community on Wednesday nights, and having the support of Mark at his office hours, or really any of us that are on the team. Will support them if they have any questions.
Great, thank you for that.
Yeah, absolutely. Do we have any other questions? So let me talk a little bit about getting involved. I just talked about the boot camp. If anyone's interested in the boot camp, you can go to miraclemessages.org/events. You can click on the boot camp, and you can pick the, whatever month that you're available. We do offer those once a month. If you're interested in the Miracle Friends program as a volunteer, you can go to miraclefriends.org. There's an application link on there. For the Miracle Friends, in order to be a volunteer in the Miracle Friends program, you have to complete the application, you have to complete a waiver, you have to attend a 30-minute orientation. And we do provide you with a handbook that we would like you to read. And we do use a service called DialPad, or people could use Google Voice to set up a separate or different phone number so that when you are engaging with your friend, your personal cell phone number is masked and you're presenting as that other number. So there's just some setup things that need to happen, but it's really pretty quick. And once you've done those steps, you're then matched with a friend. We match based on gender preference and obviously based on language spoken. And then that's pretty much it. So as far as becoming a friend, it's probably maybe about an hour of your time to be onboarded and to be able to start being matched. If anybody's interested in partnering with us or learning more about any of our programs, you could certainly email me directly. And I love talking about our programs. So I promise I won't talk to you for full 45 minutes, but I love talking about our programs. So if there's any questions or any follow-up that you want to do at a later time, please feel free to email me. Okay. Were there more questions, Heather, in the chat?
Yeah, I think we're going to go back to the video. I believe we have solved that case.
All right.
So I defer to Danielle and Alexis on that.
How has this Miracle Friends experience been for you, Nathaniel, and for Bruce?
Oh, I like it. I like it very much. It is very helpful. If it hadn't been for Bruce, I was very stressed out. Very stressed out. And really going through it. Not knowing what's going to be what. No one to really talk to what's going on with me. And how I'm feeling. And it's great help. I have a friend for life.
I'm so glad. Bruce, what about you?
It's been a real joy to get to know Nathaniel, and we try to talk regularly, at least a couple times a week. And not only do I check in on him, he checks in on me to make sure that I'm doing okay too. So we are true friends. It works both ways. We talked to the Union Square bid people. We went downtown in Union Square right in front of a big Christmas tree, and we had a videotape. We told our stories.
I'm so pleased that the selection committee selected you to be a recipient of our Miracle Money program. Bruce really wrote up a beautiful submission for you.
Oh my God.
Pretty good, huh?
Good. I'm starting to cry.
Oh.
I'm just grateful. It'll go towards rent.
I know that you and Bruce have been working hard on looking at housing options for you, and I'm just so thrilled that you're going to be able to use this for your rent and to help you so that you won't have to worry about where you're going to land. Do you have a bank account?
Oh, I don't.
We actually have some coaches that can help you get a bank account set up, and then
That'll work.
They're called Smart Money Coaching, and we can have them work with you to set up a bank account, and then we'll transfer the money into the bank account every month. They can help you with a lot of things. They're financial coaches.
I'm really grateful. I am. It's been hard. It has been hard. You know, not knowing when I'm going to go. And I can't go back to the streets. I can't do that. I just can't live that way. I can't do it.
You and Bruce have created this friendship. So
for life.
For life. You are absolutely right.
Bruce has helped me get through so much. My stress and my pain and my anger. He got me through all that. The passing of his father, you know, because people are dying every day, and the racism that's going on today in the world, you know, it's ugly, but there's a lot of love. And that's what I hold on to, is love. I can't let that go. Once I let that go, then I'm done. Because everybody is an evil. Thank God.
Thank you, Nathaniel. I feel the same.
To hold on to the love is something that'll get us through a lot of these rough times. So yeah, thank you so much.
I thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Madeline. You guys have been great. The program's great. Yeah.
That it is.
I've watched that. I'm not going to tell you how many times. and I cried through the whole thing, even when I was trying to get through the words. But I think what you can see there is the love that Bruce and Nathaniel have for each other. And they were just matched. I mean, like, not just matched. They've been matched now for probably 8-9 months. But they were strangers, got on a phone, started chatting. We don't expect our volunteers to go meet their friend in person, but Bruce and Nathaniel have done that. They've done that a few times, and they've actually gone for walks. I just got a picture over the weekend that they went for a walk, and they sent me a picture of them by the Golden Gate Bridge. So you can see the power of friendship and how much Bruce has helped Nathaniel. But I don't know if everyone caught in there that Nathaniel helped Bruce when Bruce's father passed away. He was checking on him on a regular basis. So I'm really, really glad you guys got the audio working on that, because that's, yeah, I just, thank you. Thank you for letting us show that. Okay.
No, that's a I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I definitely am trying not to cry on a webinar. So thank you, Madeline, for your,
Well, you're welcome. And I'm known as the crier at Miracle Messages, because I'm either crying tears of joy or something sad. And yeah, so thank you for allowing us to share that. And really, you know, a couple of just ending words, and then we'll see what see what questions people have. But we really do believe that everyone is somebody. And we also really, really believe, you know, we envision a world where, you know, our unhoused neighbors are not just problems to be solved, but people to be loved. So, and we really have an amazing team that believes that, and our volunteers are just some of the most caring, compassionate. I mean, Bruce is not the only one like that. We've got a lot of volunteers that are like that. So, so thank you for letting me be here. And oh, by the way, this photo in the background, the woman, the second in from the left, Jasmine, she was reconnected with her uncle Wayne, and she was able to spend a lot of time with him and got him into housing. And that's her sister. And unfortunately, Wayne passed away not that long ago. But they're always been a part of our family. And that's what ends up happening, is we become very close with the families as we're reuniting, and they become very big supporters of ours. But yeah, that's a beautiful picture of them all together. So, okay.
Thank you so much. These are real people, real situations, and real stories. And thank you.
Thank you.
I do want to, for the purposes of time, just so everyone's aware, we'll send out an evaluation after this, but I do want to allow some off recording questions. So at this point in time, though, for the purposes of just making sure that people who couldn't join today do get the information, and in relationship to Pathways and the people that we serve in this program, I think it would be helpful to talk through how the Miracle Money works and what exactly that program is and how people get connected to it. I understand it's through the Miracle Friends, but can you talk a little bit more about that? Because I think one of the inhibiting factors for our population, which is, it seems to be true across the board, and I know at the federal level, there's an infrastructure bill that might alleviate some of this. And I know that, you know, Maxine Waters is working through committee to try to make vouchers an entitlement. But until we can get there, I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about your program and how people do receive the Miracle Money to help them pay rent, or, you know, whatever it is that they're looking for help with. If you could talk a little bit more about that, I think
Sure.
People would benefit from that, especially with where we are in our pilot.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So, like I said, the Miracle Money program is a pilot right now. So it's a 6-month pilot. What you didn't hear in that video when I told Nathaniel that he was going to be receiving the Miracle Money was we do ask for a few things from our friends. So the first requirement is they have to be, for this pilot, is they have to be an active participant in the Miracle Friends program. So there has to be engagement on a consistent level between the volunteer and the friend. So once that is that's like number one. Number two is the friend or the volunteer needs to, you know, submit them to the program and explain why they feel that they would be a good candidate for this program. And a lot of them did come in with needs for rent. A couple of them, you know, came in submissions. They wanted to be able to get their car back on the road and pay off all of their, you know, fines and, you know, get their license reinstated. You know, so there were different reasons that people had to want to use the money. So once we narrowed it down to the 15, we then, during that announcement, we tell them, you know, here's the requirements. Is we want you to be engaged with your Miracle Friend for at least the 6 months. We want to be able to call you and do a survey to see how you're doing and to see how you're using the money. So we do that. We do a survey every month. We'd love to be able to tell your story. And so we actually have miraclemessages.org/miracle money. There's another website which lists all their stories and how they're doing. So we want to be able to tell their story. So those are 3 things that we ask of them. The 4th thing was, do you have a bank account? And if you don't, can we go ahead and, you know, help you set that up? And as you heard with Nathaniel, he didn't. So we did help Nathaniel set up a bank account. We tell them that they're not, you know, it's prohibited for them to use the money for drugs, guns, you know, cigarettes, or, you know, like, we don't want them using the money for that. We're not telling them what to use the money for. We just don't want them using the money for that. So, so those were the stipulations around around receiving the money. And every single one of the friends was like, oh yeah, I got it. And most of them were like, even if you didn't give me this money, I'd still be friends with my person for another 6 months, you know? So there was like no qualms at all. So once they are accepted into the program, we then do monthly transfers into their bank account of $500 a month. Now, we do have one particular friend that we actually cut a check and it goes directly to the landlord, because that's the way that friend really wanted it to happen. And it made the most sense for that friend. So we actually just, Kevin initiates a check and it goes directly to the landlord. But everyone else gets the money into their account. And then through the survey and through the continued communication with their friend, you know, we're starting to learn how they're using the money. And that's how we know right now 25% are using it towards rent. Let's see.
That makes sense.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Are you looking at best practices around this pilot that would expand it? Okay.
Yes. Well, we're looking at, and I do want to just, I saw your message in the chat, Heather. I do want to mention that. The other part of the initial questions is, what benefits do you receive? Because we don't want this $500, even though it's considered a gift. It's we didn't want it impacting their SSI or, you know, their CalFresh or anything like that. So so that was a big part of the question, and for most people the $500 was good for them. But yeah, paying the landlord directly would obviously allow us to not have to worry about that. And I think for this one individual, she was concerned about that, and she doesn't, her English is not her first language. So everything that we do with her, we have a translator so that she fully understands, you know, what's happening. But yeah, I didn't mean to cut you off, but yeah. So what our hope is after the 6-month pilot, now, not everyone started at the same time. So we still have like a few people are almost done. And then there's probably like half that are not going to be done till like August. So once the pilot's all done, then we're going to analyze the data. We're going to see what best practices there are. And then we're going to figure out what's next, because we did fundraise for this. You know, we fundraised and we got $45,000 from people donating to us. Like we did Giving Tuesday, and so we were able to get a lot more money than we thought. And Kevin did a fundraiser in February for his birthday because we wanted to get a couple of more people in the program. So, you know, obviously it's going to be a funding thing for us, whether or not we can fund it, but we definitely will wrap this up and look at the survey and look at best practices and see what we could, you know, what we can tweak or not, you know, maybe we do a lump sum instead of once every 6 months. You know, those are things that we can review, because this is our program, and we can see what really works best. But having the Miracle Friend connection has really allowed us to follow our friends on their journey, which I think is there's been a couple of other UBI pilots, and that's a huge difference for us, is that their friend is still talking with them, and so we know what's going on, and we have the surveys, and so and having it so that it's once every month, I think helps too, because they know they're going to get another $500 and versus a lump sum, but I think all of our friends have just been just so empowered by not only the friendship, but the fact that now they're getting $500 a month, and many of them are able to move into housing or even furnish. One woman was so excited. She was able to, go buy an iron while she's waiting to get into housing. So now she can iron her clothes, so there's things like that are coming up that they're like, oh my gosh, I have a little money. I can go buy an iron so I can look good when I go out, yeah. So definitely, obviously life-changing. I hope that
Yeah,
answers.
I think you have a huge echo chamber on this call when it comes to that. So I do want to be mindful of time, and what I would like to do at this point is just Danielle, if you could advance us to the end of the deck, and then if there are other questions that you want to ask out loud verbally, we're going to hang on the phone for a little bit. But otherwise, I want to thank everyone for attending today. I hope this was helpful information. In sum, take advantage of this resource or consider volunteering or connecting other people to volunteer with them and to become a digital detective and solve these cases. It's really important work, frankly, and very impactful. But I would also just like to say that if you have people who you're trying to work with that need help, and you do not have the time to devote to reunification, which takes time, we encourage you to contact Madeline and Miracle Messages and get in touch with them rather than try to do it yourselves. They have, trained professionals who can equip you and get this done with you and your clients. So I encourage everyone to take advantage of this service. But as with any nonprofit, I also would like to just also mention that they do need volunteers to get this done. So I would be remiss in not saying that. But thank you so much. I hope everyone appreciated this information as much as we did, and that you feel it was actionable. We will have an evaluation emailed to you. I encourage you to fill that out. If you have ideas for other future learning communities, please do not hesitate to let us know. We would love to feature any of the topics that can help advance your goals in the Pathways program. But with that, I want to just say again, thank you, Madeline, so much for this information. It was incredible. And we will definitely follow up with you to see how that pilot worked out, to see what best practices are, because I think there are a lot of incentives around that could be applied across the board.